Hello, I'm Nataly Rader with World Cultures on View. Great to have you here. Sharika, I very much enjoy your work. Your portraits are striking, and they
Thank you.
truly, of course, they truly attract visually, but then they encourage to raise a question. What is she photographing? What are these portraits? Who are these people? And when I read your captions, one, they're very intelligent and always very interesting, even though short. Two, the fascination, you do generate the fascination with the region, with the Zulu settlement and this community. So I want to start the way traditionally I conduct the interview. I talk about how you discovered photography, what brought you to this field of work. Was there something in your childhood? What's the journey?
Yes, my father was very fond of taking all the old slides, and he used to still work with with film. So he used to like when we went down to the Transkei, he would like to take photos and especially portraits of the Xhosa people. And the Xhosas would have these long pipes. The women would smoke these long pipes, and most of the time the faces were painted white. Um, and very interesting culture, and it sort of sparked it, but it was a long journey before I picked up the camera. Um, I remember the first time I shot photos was from my parents had won a camera, a Kodak, and my father had a roll of 36 photos in there, um, film, and our neighbor's son went to school. It was his first day in school, and his mom was she was not healthy, and she had a lot of mental battles. So she wasn't there for his first day of school, and I took the camera and I took 36 pictures of that little boy. My father was not impressed. So that started a keen interest for me already. And then I went on to work, started in dentistry, and never actually really thought of taking photos except maybe for family, that type of thing. And I became ill, and I was actually at home. And one day, Sarah, one of the settlement women, she was just, she asked, "Can you please come take photos of me and of my family?" And she belonged to church, and she had this beautiful white gown and the sachet around the waist, and she wanted me to record that. And from there it just kind of went. I saw Annie, and Annie, with the first photo that I sent you with the clock, she was quite, "Why are you doing this?" And then when she saw what I'm doing, we started to connect, and then the rest of the village started to connect, and then I started to form these bonds with them there. And then I went out into the streets. I said, "Okay, well, I would like to when I go and I see maybe this face standing, or emotion, maybe little girl sitting with the ice cream, and it's just dropped in the tears. Let me try and capture that." And So I just set out. I think it happened very much just there was that opportunity for me. Out of my illness came something else, and I enjoyed it very much. And I was learning so much. I was learning about the people in my own town, and as um, as I continued, I also got to learn more of the culture, their traditions, and I could also that was very interesting to me to be part of that and to be allowed to be part of that. But look, Carolina is not a place you can't just take your camera and aim and shoot. Yeah, you have to actually go up to somebody, you have to ask for the permission, or you got to explain why you're taking this photo. What are you doing? What is your business with me? This is how it works. So it's a very respectful thing,
So it
which I
sounds like it's very intimate and very
it
personal.
is very intimate. It's intimate, and for me also, it's also for me, it's like a growth process of seeing myself and seeing also the other people, and that I find it just comes from it's just sometimes yeah inside my chest.
So how old were you when you started to photograph?
I was 32, 32.
Okay.
32.
Uh,
And actually
your
started.
level, the reason I'm asking is I'm not trying to figure out your age or anything. I
Oh, 28.
um, why I'm asking is you mentioned your health condition, that you had illness, which I'm aware you still live with. And then your connection with this settlement and with those people. So naturally the question rising, how did your health and your illness affected your view on life? Was there any change? Did it anyhow contribute to intimate relationship with these people?
Yes, I think it made me realize that there is this one life to live, and go and do what you can do. Go and love, and go and do, and go and meet new people, and go and hear of their experiences too, because you will stand in wonderment for how grateful you can be for what you have, because you all the time learning through it, and you also seeing people very much different from your own culture, but with a joy, overcoming their own sorrows, griefs, and challenges in life, um, and meeting some really strong people they just go.
You have built this incredible connection and such a long-term project with this specific settlement, right? Um, are there any other settlements around, such as, and um, why is your specific focus on this group, on this village?
There, there are different settlements. I won't say many. Um, Most of the people, and it doesn't matter, it doesn't matter your race. there are a lot of the Zulu people that live in town with me. They are very nice people. I love them. They're friends. Um, the specific how can I say, interest in this settlement is because it's small. It's 12 houses. I was sort of introduced by Sarah, and from there it grew, and I got to know the other people of the settlement, and I found that I started really caring for them, and that they were caring towards me too. And the character of each, it was kind of like it crept into my heart, and I said I would like to keep on doing this.
You keep saying the word Zulu, and I know from your work it's Zulu culture, but what is Zulu? Because you just mentioned something that's interesting, that Zulu is not just that specific settlement that you're working in. There is Zulu settlements, you said in plural. So what is it?
Zulu is one is if I'm actually talking about Zulu, I am talking about Zulu native tongue speaking Zulu people. So they speak Zulu as a first language. And now I don't know, I suppose you know that South Africa has 11 official languages.
Right, yes.
So yes, Zulu is one of them, and they they will then say and call themselves Zulu. And you do get the very traditional Zulus. They are very few. Um, and then you have a westernized sort of Zulu culture also going on. Yeah. It's easy to explain that also to you, how they also do their weddings, and the cultural things and the traditions that go with it, that I find very exciting and I've been very privileged to be invited to things like that. And then sometimes you go to uh, uh I had a Zulu couple that asked to do couple wedding, and nothing strange happened. The only thing that was in place there was lobola. Now, lobola is legalized. It's a legal contract, and it's also seen as legal in South Africa. So you get your marriage, either by church or by law, by the magistrate, or you can, for these people, they use lobola. And
Labola?
lobola settlement is a pact with cattle, and it's recognized legally.
Let's dive deeper
So
into.
when a young maiden is, when she's still a young maiden, she is called a itombi or tombi, but you will write itombi. Um, then at that stage, she is not spoken for yet. A young suitor will come along, and he will be interested in her. And then the negotiation process will begin with her family. He will go and he will say, I am interested in your daughter, or I'm interested in your sister. What is the settlement? What should I pay for her? Am I to pay in cattle, or am I to pay in cash, or the form that is required for the bride? If it's not a completely traditional wedding, um, on the day of marriage, the man will go to the family He will then furthermore give another gift, most probably money-wise. And he will take with him a blanket. He will wrap it around his wife to be shoulders. That is to symbolize to her family. He is now taking care of her. So he wraps her with the blanket and she will sit with it, and immediately a headcloth comes on. From a itumbi, she then changes to a makoti. So
So
then she's a
married
makoti
woman.
woman. That means a married woman.
Married woman.
She's
So it sounds to me like this tradition. So the question is, the marriage, the arrangement happens between different settlements, right? So it's probably not from, is it within the same village, or they usually try to bring in from a different village or different settlement, unite the families?
If I take, for example, just from people that I know, I see that it could be from different settlements, and then also in town. Also, it can be just somebody falling in love with somebody else, and and you're going to pay lobola. There are, of course, a lot that don't practice it anymore or don't want that kind of agreement. They say no.
So
We don't want
traditionally is, of course, it's basically a financial transaction between the families or between the villages, the communities. But you mentioned that people fall in love. So there are more modern way of the communion, the
Yes.
marriage these days?
If I have to take in David and Martha, it's people that I know. David fell madly in love with Martha, and she's from a different village than him. And he just fell madly in love with her. But lobola was still in place. So he negotiated for her. And after lobola has been paid, it is quite essential for those more living the tradition. You have paid a certain amount of cows. You are expecting children. There a problem does arise sometimes because maybe you've got a barren wife. So then a man has a choice to leave that wife because she can't provide the children, but he won't take the lobola back unless the
So there
court
is
decides.
reproduction is a huge factor in.
Very, very much so. Very much so. So when David got married to Martha, um, he did pay a settlement of cattle, and he also did pay a settlement of money, but he also loved her a lot. This I know because I know them personally. And when Martha couldn't fall pregnant, and it's been a very long time, she learned that she's barren. And then David said to me one day, he said to me, "No, he's got to leave." I said, "Why do you need to leave?" He said, "I paid this amount and this amount. I have to have 4 children by Martha." I said, "But how are you going to have 4 children with Martha?" So sometimes we also debate with each other, and have a conversation without being rude and disrespectful.
This is very
He's
interesting
coming
because
to
you
me.
mentioned that he madly fell in love with her, but after she couldn't bear children with him, where did the love go? What happened?
Then he came to me and then he said to me, "What should I do?" And I said, "Do you love Martha?"
Mhm.
And he said, "Yes." And I said to him, "But you do have 2 children from a previous relationship." And really cost-wise too. You have to think about kids, because these are people that also want good to come for their children. So I said to him, to David, um, you have to make his choice. Do you love Martha? And he said yes. And then he made a choice um, to stay with her, and they are still with each other today. Another interesting story there is Martha became ill with epilepsy. It was very clear to see because she had a fit before me. And David said, and it was his traditional upbringing to believe this, that she was cursed, and he had to take her to the witch doctor. I said to him, so he comes to ask me, he says, I'm taking her to the witch doctor. I said, it's okay, David, but can I tell you that she's suffering epilepsy? You do need to take her down to the state hospital as well. So we took her there to have the curse removed. And
So he took it to the
then
witch doctor first before taking
he
to the
took her to
hospital.
the first, and then she had another very, very large seizure. And he called me on the telephone. He said to me, please, can I come pick them up? Martha is lying there. Can I take them to the hospital? I did that. And she is now on medication for seizure. This is the places where you feel you've got enough closeness, and you've got somebody asking you. Yeah, you feel you can interfere, and not interfere in a way of just inviting yourself to interfere. It's kind of explaining to David it would be unnecessary suffering for Martha to go with these seizures.
Right.
There
Um,
is also a way for her.
right. Well, let's go into slightly broader picture. The thing is that I do understand very well that there are a handful of people and you got so close to them and basically they became your family. So many years working with the same group of people. It is really amazing. But let's talk about the settlement itself. What is their main source of income? What do they do? How do they provide for themselves? And what their living conditions are like?
I think if we should, the living conditions, look, they build with Daga their homes. It's not going to be up to the standards maybe we've got, but they make their wooden frames, and then Daga is a mixture of mud, manure, and water, and they plaster their huts and decorate it and paint. Living conditions, I would say, it's clean, it's peaceful, but running water was a problem. It's still not. There's at least a tank there now, Jojo tanks. So it's big storage tanks where the people can get water to wash their washing, to use for their toilet, to wash themselves, to cook, to drink, and the municipality provides that water to them with the water truck. Electricity has been connected, so at least every house has got a light. or can have a kettle at least to cook. Um, the RDP government houses, non-existent. It's a lot of empty promises. So, you know, that's sort of out of the window. Um,
Why is it
living
out of the
conditions.
window? Is there some kind of work going on? Is there,
No, I think that South African government at this point is the infrastructure is really overloaded in every way. Maintenance has fallen back a lot. Um, the the government, there is also corruption going on. So a lot has been promised, and the delivery on that is very poor.
your work features a lot of Miss Annie. She's a star. So who is Miss Annie? What is your relationship with Miss Annie? And it's like there's so much love comes from her. By the way, I was very touched and very, like, truly thrilled to get a little personal greeting from her. She's so cute.
Yeah, hallo Emily. Actually, his name is Annie.
Why? Who is she? I know, and it's only one person out of the entire settlement that we're going to focus for a short while on, but clearly it's very important to you.
It is. It is. I feel that Annie is such a hardworking woman. And I feel that so much of her is hidden, and I wanted to bring her out. And there is love there. Definitely. Um, there's just about nothing not to love about her, because she's just got this personality that that will draw you in. And you know, you can sort of ask her anything, and she will give it to you truthfully. It doesn't always come out in the most correct way, but she just gives it to you as it is. And I think the humbleness that she carries inside of her, and that will to survive. And I never hear. There are times when I see Annie cry, and when she's upset, but then, but it's always that carry on, go on. And there's something in me that truly admires that of Annie. I
And you
really,
probably
really.
personally, you probably, like, just knowing that you're living with the physical, with the health condition that you continuously maintain, right? That you're in treatment, self-treatment at this point, probably. I don't know the details, but um, she probably is a great inspiration for you, because you said that it's about survival, it's about this great love for life, and you feed off her this will and this desire to go on and power and just this living energy. Is that right?
Very much so, very much so. And with Annie, ah, it never stops to amaze me that Annie has little in life. Maybe more than actually we could have, but you know, in her will and her courage in life. But it it will never stop to amaze me. Annie was walking to the shop one day. It was over Christmas, and she heard this small little kitten, and she knew she had to bring it home. You know, it's just Annie doesn't stop loving. It all the things in life doesn't make her stop. It doesn't stop her of giving of herself. She's not cocooned herself and said, "Oh, I have to stop living." She's giving to the children. She's interacting with the children. And that's a great example to me of life too.
Well, that's wonderful, really. And it sounds, I remember you mentioned something that you definitely love this woman and you love her wisdom. Uh, what are the examples of, you said that you can ask her anything and she'd give you, so what is her life? Has she been in this settlement her entire life? Has she seen, what life does she live? And we're speaking right now specifically about Miss Annie. We'll move on to other people, but uh,
Annie Annie was married. Husband left. Annie was left to raise the children alone. Annie didn't want to stay in the bigger
how many
like
children? I'm
Sedibela
sorry,
area.
like how many kids? I'm trying
She
to
has, she has two kids.
to.
She has two children and she's got grandchildren too. So when Annie was on her own, she decided, I'm going to move out to the farmland, the settlement, as they call it, and where they have settled, just to have a quiet life. And there she makes a life woman alone because she's one woman there, and she
She's the
does
only woman in
just
she's the only woman in the settlement.
enough. There are many other women in the settlement, but she runs her house alone. She does her life alone.
She
She
lives alone.
provides for herself. She sees to Annie's business. And then also sometimes, you ask her something, if she thinks this or this isn't fair, she says, no, this is life. She says, this too shall, or she'll say something like, this too shall pass. Or she'll say something, if talking about government and what she'll just say, Haikona, scallum. It means they are, they are actually corrupt. Scallum, corrupt, because she speaks Afrikaans too. And then Annie also has got a sense of humor too. So she brings a lot of laughter when you go there, and it's just quite it's quite beautiful. And she's on what I find so good from Annie is that she's unapologetic to who and what and how she's living. She's not like there's no pretense to it, and I personally like that. I like it. I like it because, for instance, many times when we get in front of the camera, we want to like, oh, is everything right? And yeah. And with Annie, it's kind of very more. It's what you get.
It
She
is what it
gives.
is.
It is.
Absolutely. Yeah. Well,
And
because
that's
she's not,
her
her culture
personality.
is very different and her lifestyle is very different. And uh, she's probably not on social media and she probably doesn't have Instagram and Facebook accounts, of course, right? So it's
No.
entirely different mentality. You mentioned that she provides for herself. How does she make her living?
She works for a woman. She's deep into her 70s now, and she sort of goes to care for her. Um, She cares for her and sort of helps with the housework there. So she does that every day. She walks in from the farmland, or from the settlement, goes in, gets her money, goes back home, and does her life from there.
You know,
The
it's really
rest,
what amazes me, and the thought just came that we here in the West, our lives are so intense and dynamic. So you would think that our love for life and desire to hold on must be so strong. And yet, when you speak about Miss Annie, who spends basically probably every day looks like yesterday or day before, and there's a lot of not much is going on, yet this will and this love for life is so strong. And to me, it almost seems like it is stronger than us. When, you know, like myself, I constantly question, oh my God, there's still so much I can do, there's still so much I can contribute, there's still so much. But the attachment to life itself and this love for life feels almost, I wouldn't say less, but it's not as accented. You know, it's not as there's maybe it's the connection to the land, maybe it's connection to the nature that people in, let's say, tribes or settlements or small communities have, right? But it's so much deeper in their world.
you can tell me if what you think of this idea. But I too, I think it's very important that we sometimes step back and see if we are too busy. I mean, being busy is good, doing more and trying, but also stepping back and seeing when our busyness is starting to affect the will for life, the pure joy of the small little things happening in our life, and appreciating them for what they are. And sometimes, you know, when I'm talking more yeah, on a personal level, when we've got a deep hurt inside, and we just keep pushing and pushing and pushing and pushing, sometimes we have to stand back and let it heal. We have to not be so busy. We have to also learn to be a little bit more quiet. Because I think we 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 can endanger ourselves by becoming too busy, too too busy. And I won't say that when when it's your work and it's your passion, you obviously have to work hard on that, because otherwise you won't accomplish your goals. I mean, that's something we all know. But it is also very good to step sometimes back and look, am I am I very too busy to see some insights in life, some things that's maybe not working so good in my life anymore, or things that could be changed maybe, or something that's maybe getting off balance, or where can I add more? And I feel that can sort of make us more focused.
So back to the settlement, and since you're so close in relationship with them, um, every person is different. So if this life works for Miss Annie so well, and she loves her living, just loves life and where she's at this present moment time so much, are there people, younger people, older people, doesn't really matter, in that settlement that feel like the environment doesn't suit them? And are they free to go and move to the cities and seek different dynamic and different life? And if yes, does it happen? And how often does it happen? Does it happen? Sorry.
Definitely. Not everybody wants to stay there. It's definitely there's ambition to grow, especially under the youth. Yes, they are free. Once they have done their education, this is why education is a very important role for them to go further and not fall into having to go into stay the same. Many of them want different lives, want to live more modern, want to achieve something, want to have a vehicle to drive, want to have a house they can build for themselves. Like, for instance, Sarah's son, it's one of the ladies from the settlement. He went to go and study further, went to go and study in electronics, and then got a job with the municipality, and has now recently moved to Witbank, and is building a house there, and he's also built for his sisters a brick house, the first brick house in the settlement. So yes, there are definitely people, they want to get, the younger kids, they want to get out. They have got dreams of nursing, of teaching, of and
Brick
the
house,
other
that's
means
very
that
interesting. Sorry to interrupt again. As I said, I'll be jumping in with questions. So
yes,
he didn't move out. He brought the advancement into the village. Since you said he built the brick house, so I think it is really amazing and truly admirable. He didn't run away to a large city. He went, he got his education, then he came back to bring the
no,
investment.
he's got a house in the larger city too, but he came back to build for his sisters a house. So, he's living there, and now they visit from time to time, which I feel is a good thing, because the children are also exposed to a little bit more and get to see, like, the malls and a little bit things and so. But no, these kids many times they want what other kids want to.
Uh, but we always talk about, how younger generation wants to merge with the bigger world, and how they escape, and how some escape, some just move. And as you said, like with this young man, it's a beautiful example. He got his education, he loves his city life, but yet he brings back and gives back to the community, and that is absolutely beautiful. But do you feel and do you observe, since you've been working on this project, and I call it a project, but I know it's not a project anymore, it's just your life, this relationship with this community, right, with this small settlement, do you see changes? Do you see how the modern world is slowly penetrating, and how more and more of the traditions disappearing, or just younger people choose not to follow, or they just choose not to do it. The beautiful video that you sent me of the wedding procession of the dance, that was a great example, and so many young women were participating. But do you feel the decline? Do you see the decline?
Yes, I do see it happening. Look, the settlement itself, the very small settlement, is, I would say, semi-traditional. They are not really very traditional. There are some of the traditions that stay in place. Let's take, for example, if somebody was to pass away, goat will be slaughtered, little uh, goat band would be put around. That's the grieving process, blanket covering. The Zulu wedding that I saw in a neighboring town, Brayton, and these were absolutely it. It was a family of more wealth, and they were very proud of their culture, and they wanted to show it. And that's exactly what they did, because usually these cultural the ceremonies, they are more private, like weddings also, they aren't so on such a big display, so it usually more happens in the privacy of maybe a family. So concerning the settlement, do I see it some of it dying out? Yes, I do. I do see, and I see some of it staying too the same.
What about South Africa? Is there, and here I guess I'm talking about politics, but is there some kind of movement from the traditional communities and settlements to preserve their culture, or does the government get, you mentioned the corruption, of course I understand that part, but does it affect in any way the tradition and old cultures? And I'm not even talking about the race, or maybe I should talk about that as well, and how that is being viewed in South America in general, South Africa, I'm sorry, in general.
A terrible resistance from cultures standing up. You have to take into account that KwaZulu-Natal and also the Transkei and the former Ciskei, it's now one, actually all part of the Eastern Cape. That's more to the coast, and KwaZulu-Natal is also to the coast. There you still get very big settlements of Zulu people living traditionally. So you will still find them living totally in their traditional ways, claiming some westernization, but very little.
Okay.
And So, but for the most part, yeah, the times when we do see people is in South African Heritage Day. That's something we celebrate, and then everybody dresses up as their culture, and you will see the beautiful beads, headbands that make a distinction between different um, languages, sometimes the different tribes, and they will wear that, and that's very beautiful to see. So there is a special day to celebrate it, and it's really very highly celebrated and enjoyed by all South Africans, including myself.
Well, you're talking about just one day in this particular case, but in general, on a daily basis, and how does the administration participates or approaches cultural ways and preserving the traditions, and as well, how do in general people of South Africa view that? And I understand that those who live in small settlements, they practice, but what about how much support, I guess that's where I'm going, how much support do they get from the people of the country in general? And how much participation altogether from the entire population of the country is into preservation of cultural traditions?
I think there is a good deal, but I think it's far too little. I think it's far too little. I think public and the general public, I don't know if you see it in your own world, but people tend to be selfish. I mean it in the nicest way that I can say. It's all about themselves, all about their lives, all about their progression in life, and not maybe looking at these things that's lost and very interesting. And but I know there are groups to help preserve. I'm not part of such a group. I've just gone in my own individual and sort of looked at it and saw that it was fascinating and beautiful to me. And as far as government, I'm not sure. I'm not sure. There are a lot of things that are working in South Africa, and there's a lot of things that simply aren't working. I don't know how much of that money goes to this, but I know there is, like a minister for arts, cultures, and so we hope that that could be invested properly, but you don't know. I know that KwaZulu Natal, it's part of South Africa. It's a neighboring it's neighboring to Mpumalanga. It's part of South Africa. They still run under. They do have a king there. I know that specific the Zulus have asked at one stage for the whole of KwaZulu-Natal as to be their own separate kingdom. And that would not mean that white people would be excluded from it. It was just so that they could have their own independent piece of land. So in that way, they did stand up. I'm not sure if that would happen. I'm not sure if that would be granted.
Interesting. So let's say let's so my question would be healthcare, the settlements, and let's say the settlement you have a relationship with, How is healthcare provided for them, and how easy is it to access?
There is the state hospital, Carolina State Hospital. It's state run, so anybody is can go there. You get quite long queues, and but there is a doctor, X-ray machine, dentist. I won't say it's cutting edge technology, but it can provide the basic service. So if there was an accident to be, or if there's a health crisis, they can get the person to the next stage. There's an ambulance. Once a year, the Polopela train comes through. That's a train that stops in many of the small little towns. It's a train that's got eye health, dentistry, um, and other things, social work, um, helping children with some of their skills. Uh, Psychology will be underneath there. The train will stop for 2 weeks, and people can go there, and the service is for free. So
That was my
that is
question, the financial
available
part of a
then to
healthcare.
anybody. It's available to anybody. If you do go to the state hospital, you will pay amount of 20 Rand, and then that is to see a doctor. You will get your medicine. That will include your x-rays. If you have to be admitted to hospital, that will include that. That is there for Annie. That is there for the settlement. That is there for the rest of the town that does not have a private medical aid. So that is in place then.
So the
Still you
question
find,
is, Sharika, is it affordable? We're talking about settlements, and clearly their finances aren't as, you know,
yes, it is affordable. It is
it is
affordable.
affordable.
It's more affordable than what they would maybe do in traditional circumstances. Going to the Sangoma is sort of almost like a witch doctor, throws the bones, stones, reads, and gives medicine based on that. Yes, I would say it's pretty much affordable. How can I? Let's say, what's the I think in the US currency, let's say it's about $1 to see a doctor. It will cost $1 to see a doctor, to have all your medication, to have your x-rays taken. If you have to be admitted or have an operation, it's $1.
Is that for the entire country, nation, or special? This is a special program for
This is for people that do not have
low income.
a private medical aid. We are on a private medical aid, so we pay a medical aid,
Gotcha.
and that covers us. But people who cannot afford a medical aid, this is open for them. So they get to sort of go. I'm not sure if the price has gone up this year, but could maybe be $2 now
Well, it still sounds really
to see your
affordable,
doctor,
and it's
to get
wonderful. Yeah, really wonderful that actually the healthcare is provided and
yeah.
it is available and affordable.
There is also there's also a good team of nurses that come around. Sometimes they stop in town, and they help people with TB. sometimes the HIV crisis that's going on, people to make sure they are educating and keeping people using their medication. And
When you travel to other settlements, you said that you take photos of some people who are not from that specific settlement. Do you return to the same places? I mean, with this specific settlement where Miss Annie, the star, is, you obviously have a very close relationship, and that's your second home, I would say. But with other settlements, do you visit them frequently, or do you return? And people you photograph, do you build any kind of, besides just that instant connection, do you build any relationships with them as well?
almost always, almost always. Um, it's a point where I'm not responsible for the life, but it's like asking and then saying, will you be in town in when you come into town again? Okay, I'll be here on Friday. So, okay, let's meet. I will give you a print, and then usually I will give them the raw print, because sometimes you'll see I use quite a lot of contrast and a lot of black and white. So then I will give them the original, and then sometimes we have a sit down and just like in talk, just a quick chat, just just talking, about what we're seeing together, what they're seeing, what's happening with Caroline, how they feel, and kind of getting to learn to know people also more. So most of them, almost all of them, I do return. But there are people that also become, uh, it's bad to say that, but like a hit and run. If we're traveling and we're going through the border post to Swaziland, and I saw this most gorgeous, precious face of an old man, and it was lit up his eyes and everything, and I couldn't stay long because we were on the highway, or sort of on the freeway going to there. So I couldn't stay long, but I could stay long enough. And then I asked him, if we pass through there again, where can I meet him? But I didn't see him again.
Question about your photography. Sorry, and I might be jumping back and forth. As I said, my mind is going, and you say something, I have a question. Your style of processing, there is a lot of, as you said yourself, a lot of contrast, a lot black and white, and there's, in a way, because high contrast adds hardness to the image, right? So it's not, you take the softness away. Why do you choose this specific look? And my assumption would be that, is there people you photograph, their lifestyle and their environment suggests this visual processing? I would like to reconfirm that what I am seeing and what I'm feeling is actually true.
Yes.
In your words, why do you choose that process?
I choose the process because I feel it's honest to what my eyes are seeing. It is sometimes harsh. The contrasts are used very deliberate. You will also see that I sometimes blow out I will sometimes blow out the background, so you would only get the person in the focus. I do that purposefully.
Right.
So I will overexpose and just get that one person there. That's on purpose. I really do the contrast on purpose. I feel it's honest to the story. I've had a lot of criticism about it, but I've also had a lot of people asking me about it. Why? And some people like it, but I feel it's true to life, yeah. To this to the contrast between the things that I see happening.
You know, I am right now, while I'm talking to you, I'm looking at your gallery as well. It's good to have multiple devices. And it's interesting, don't worry about it. So I'm looking right now at the gallery, right? And we're talking about this harder, high contrast look. And most of those people are of an older age. And then there's one photo of a street portrait of a young man, a youth. And his portrait is very soft.
I think it's the portrait of Kay.
But there is no name. There is no name attached to that. But yes, he's wearing a white hat or a hat and
Oh yes, the
a
young youth.
backpack. But it's interesting that with the younger person, or maybe it's his personality, yet you chose softer look. So that was initially my question, that with the portrait and every person, you basically reflecting their not only living condition, but their personalities as well. And well, we all know that the more wrinkles we see on person, every wrinkle is is tells a story.
Oh, I
It's
think it's beautiful.
right, is a reflection of life. So a lot of your portraits, people have rough faces, and by rough I mean there's a lot of wrinkle, there's a timeline running through their face, right? And by what you're doing when you're increasing the contrast and you're converting into black and white, you're obviously emphasizing that, you bring the attention to that. You want the viewer to really feel those timelines. And yet with the younger person, you left his face so soft and almost like lowered the contrast. And I absolutely love it. Absolutely love it, because every portrait you photograph becomes very personal, not only to you, but to the viewer as well, to people who view it, right? Now you mentioned, and I have no idea who would do such thing, but you said that you received some criticism for, processing the way you process. Why? What argument do people bring to their critique?
Uh, People will. I think it's just. I don't take it very personally, and I think that everyone should do as they they want to portray, and which is maybe according to the personality they're doing, and also maybe dignifying to a certain person, or maybe explaining with a certain process. Oh, it's so funny. I took one of my photos back to one of the people, and this man said, "Oh, I'm so ugly." And I was like, "Oh, yes, your photo.
Well, you know, it's interesting.
That's not ugly.
But it's interesting. Of course, they live closer to the rural living than urban living, right? And as you mentioned before, the technology is limited access to technology. What about photographs? I mean, we're so used to, all of us, seeing our selfies, you know, and it's easy snap, and we constantly see ourselves not only in the mirror, but because when you look in the mirror, it's your personal perception of yourself. You see what you want to see. And camera perceives you in a very different way. Camera captures what you look to others or the other side. I mean, I'm not going to get into whole philosophy thing that 20 people would look at you and everybody would see you slightly differently, because we create our own reality. It's not, you know, there's no such thing as real. What is real? But the camera has its own version of reality. Let's put it that way. And those people, did this man see himself, probably not for the first time photographed, but probably for the first time in a very long time, he saw himself, his portrait, and the version of himself the way the camera saw him, right? So
Yes.
photography is not something that's very commonly used there. I mean, you as a photographer go with your camera and you take photos, but I don't think the selfie culture penetrated that part of the world very well.
You will be surprised. It's changing day by day. It really is. Carolina, this small little place, I think currently holds 5 cell phone shops. Vodacom, NTM, and a few others. So cell phones are. Annie's still got one of these little button phones, but most of the people now, they've got cell phones. So lots of times you see this. So that
Oh,
is, yeah,
okay.
and that is changing a lot.
You know,
Even
it's interesting
people,
because I've noticed, I remember many years ago when smartphones just came to the market, and shortly after I was in traveling through Southeast Asia, and I remember in this absolutely remote village, fishing village in Cambodia, where tourists don't even get very often. And the kids were running around with no pants, you know, some kind of funky t-shirt, but they had their cell phones. And that I thought it was the funniest thing that these days, no, and that was some years ago. So these days is literally no matter where you go in the world, there is no escape from technology. It's
I was looking the other day, just looking at a herdsman. He was walking his cattle, and he was having a good chat on his cell phone, and then he's but the cows are coming after him, and yes, it's definitely it's more and more and more and more, and the kids want it too, you know, young. The younger ones, the older ones. I see many parents don't want their smaller children, excuse me, to really be that involved with the phones. They still want them to be children to to a point, and I think that's a good thing, to play.
You know, it's so interesting. You mentioned, I imagine it's pretty funny scene, like he's, you know, shushing his cattle while doing stuff on his cell phone. Next thing you know, he has an Instagram account, my cows, portraits of his cows.
Like, Yeah, I think I'll follow it.
Yeah, I would follow it for sure.
Yes, my cows. You say, uh, definitely, it's gaining momentum. It has been gaining momentum for a long time. I hardly see when I go to the shops a person without a cell phone, and which is sometimes very weird because it seems to be that people are cell phones and they're not talking to each other anymore. So um, that's it's kind of the way it goes. But sometimes I feel a little bit sad when I see a family, doesn't matter the race, and they are all
Yes. Yes.
like this all the time. They forgot to enjoy. It's almost like if they're living a life through the Instagram.
Human connection as we knew it not that long ago is changing. It's
It
changing.
is.
People say that it's disappearing. I'm starting to understand now that it's not disappearing, it's shifting, it's changing. You and I right now still have human connection. We have a conversation. The only thing, we are not physically present in the same space. And yet I pick up on, your gestures and your body language, and I can see your environment, and there is certainly, right, even though this is first time we ever meet, but I do pick up the sense of who you are and what you are, right? And my point, back to my point, is human connection. Human connection, I don't think it would ever disappear. I think it would always be, but in different forms. It just came to my mind, and I'm just going to say it. It's not a statement, and it's definitely not a diagnosis, but maybe it's an option. When we are with the same family members, and when we are in the company of the same people for a longer time than we actually physically have need to be, we get too accustomed and sometimes even too tired, and we need to get away from those people to clear our minds, or get our own private space. And I think that maybe diving into the phone, internet, web, into that cyberspace while you're still with the same people allows you to detach and feel like you are getting that break, and you're getting connected with something else.
I very much agree with you.
What I'm learning, I'm just like, me personally, I'm just learning to go with the flow, and it's unavoidable. It is something that is happening. Technology very, very fast penetrating our world.
I agree with you.
Right. And if we keep talking about focusing on what negative it does versus realizing, I'm not going to say psychology of technology, but in a way how it affects our psychology and how it affects our dynamic in positive ways, then life is going to be miserable, because there's going to be more and more and more of that technology, and less and less and less of physical connection with a human being, unless it's forced. So it's perfectly normal, and it's okay. And again, it's stages of life. Like my son right now is 17, and this is the time for teenagers to hang out with his friends. He used to be an insane gamer. He used to just live in front of his computer for the last 4 or 5 years, 5 years, 6 years almost. All of a sudden, in the last, especially since this year began and kind of all the COVID restrictions were lifted, he's gone all the time. He's with his friends all the time. That's his life, is just being out with his buddies somewhere. So maybe that is changing in some way as well. I don't know how they, the dynamic when they are together. Maybe many of them are sitting and looking at their phones while they're still together. I have no idea. But these developmental stages, they're still there. Kids in the kindergarten are still going to play dolls and build sandcastles together.
They're going to do this. I mean, no, they're going to do that. Kids are still going to be playing together as they used to be playing, and some games might be changing because they are now going more onto technology, using their phones, and it can also be a wonderful tool. Wonderful tool. If you, but I agree. If one just looks at, oh, it's negative, it's negative. I don't think you're going to be we're going to be very happy then.
True. We need to create,
And
we create
your
our
eyes
own
now.
environment and our thought process. So focusing on the negative versus focusing on positive and vice versa, it's the choice. Anything in human life is a choice. I believe that the entire life is built on our choices and then rewards or consequences of those choices. That's all it is. You mentioned just now, and I want to jump back to the culture in Carolina and the settlement. Today's post is about kids, and we just said kids always gonna be kids. And you talked about how, you know, in your caption that I shared today, how children still play and hang out together and do the kids' things. And yet, because of their living condition and a sense of responsibility and just responsibilities they get, their maturity level is very different than possibly kids in the cities or other places. Beyond the caption, just expand that caption as a thought.
As a thought, it's just, I think, because of the way they've grown up and the responsibilities they sometimes, I don't know if it's always a choice, but it's sort of, it's kids growing up as kids, but also with a more mature, as sometimes caregivers, caring for smaller children, having to take on a lot of the responsibilities, like carrying wood, fetching water. I think it's necessary, and most probably for each household, a child is doing chores. But there are some things that I see they have to be more mature in. Sometimes in one family there is two parents, it's two twin girls, and they have taken down they have gone down a road. They are now busy being rehabilitated, and but they got into prostitution, and so these kids sort of had to take on the role for siblings there. So there is a kind of maturity that goes there, and that's what I mean with that.
You just said the word that, of course, poses the question. I couldn't ignore the word prostitution. So
Two of the women, yes, two of the women.
is
They're
this
busy getting
common?
out of it now, but they were.
Is it common that from the rural settlements, women end up in that industry? I would say in that position in
Um,
life.
no, not always. Usually, if amount of alcohol is involved, or it's maybe difficult to find a job, you can find it. You can find it happening. But no, it's not as common. But yes, there is prostitution in Carolina, and also in you can see it in the streets. It is, yeah. Um, for these two sisters, they fell into it quite early on in life, and I think some alcohol and some drugs were involved there from an early age, but they are the only users there, and they're the only two that fell into that. I wouldn't say fell into it, but they sort of it it was their lifestyle. They're slowly coming out of it.
Well, as long as it was not forced on them by others and it was
No,
chosen by them.
no. Look, I knew their mother very well. She was very, very upset about it. And their brother, the young man that came to build them, they came back to build for them the house of bricks there, and to help his sisters. Um, yeah, so no, it wasn't forced. It wasn't forced. It was absolutely a choice, easy money, because where it's situated is it's a piece of freeway. It passes through Carolina, and it goes. We are the last town going, rather biggish town going to Swaziland. So all the trucks pass by, yeah, and it was very easy for the young girls to get their money that way. So
Well,
yeah, it's
we're talking about, there are a lot of mixed feelings, of course, about prostitution as an occupation, but mainly it was chosen by them. We're talking about the oldest profession in the world. It will always exist. It will always be there in one form or another. So I think as long as there consent and choice is made, then there's a reason.
and
You
it
mentioned
was
something.
money.
Sorry, you mentioned something, and like I know it's natural to you, and you kind of brush off certain things, but to me, it strikes me. You said that people came and built brick houses for the family, the house, right? And so the community came together. People came in support. That is huge. That is huge, because in so many cases, anywhere in any culture, any part of the world, there would be judgment, and actually members of the community would turn away and look down at that family, whether it's mother or girls or whoever. But here you're talking about community coming together in assistance. That is
Yes,
remarkable.
what I saw, and from my personal interactions with them too, is to help them to to now they are both working on farms, and they are providing in that way, and they are they are more settled and secure, and it's a good thing that they aren't just we throw you under the, and all the community is throwing them underneath the bus, and it's over for these women now.
Like in many cases it would be.
No, I don't. I just don't. I just don't see that being a solution.
Of course
If
not.
we
And it's beautiful that you think that way. And it is even absolutely incredible that the community saw it this way. But I'm talking in general that people are so fast to judge. It's the nature, right? We're fast to judge. We're fast to, and usually the incline is towards negative judgment, right? Versus supportive and positive. So in so many cases, that family would have been left be and judged and looked down upon, and as you said, thrown under the bus. And it would have dragged the reputation for a long time. But this is absolutely amazing, and it's beautiful that this is what this community is about, and it speaks so highly of the morals. Going back to the relationships and dynamics in the communities, one of the posts we're going to do this week at your share is about the relationship between the grandparents and grandchildren, that dynamic. You're talking about warmth and care and kindness. So let's expand that as well.
Yes, the grandparents. Sadly, many young parents have to move away because they are maybe working, because work opportunities are few for younger people and an ever-growing population. They have to seek work in other places, and then there are also many cases where people have parents have died young, and a grandmother and grandfather will take over the role of a parent.
Well, this is really sweet. Yeah, grandparents in general, here in the West, people say that being a grandparent is really amazing because you can play with the kids and then you can give them back anytime you're ready. So it's easy, but it sounds like what you were talking about is much deeper connection, and grandparents taking the role of parent quite often, or sometimes, is really wonderful. Again, this is a connection and support of the of the community. It's part of the communal mentality. And I think that is precious. Technology or no technology, advancement or no advancement, I truly hope that these human qualities will be preserved, because I see them going. I see them evaporating slowly. That I see in the Western world. We're too preoccupied. You mentioned selfishness before and being self-observed, and I talk about it a lot. I talk about this, I guess, in every interview and podcast, the conversation of mine, because I think this is one of the most painful aspects of life to observe. One thing is building relationship with technology and through technology, but the other thing is losing the humanity.
Yes.
That is very difficult. I would like to ask you, and this is probably going to be one of my last questions. We've been chatting for quite a while now. your yesterday post, and that was the opening post, and it was about the racial equality, and it was about going back to the biblical times in the beginning of everything, right? Adam and then Eve, and this connection, and then no matter where we live or what color of our skin is or what background we come from, we all originate from exactly the same source. So on that level, I can say that we are, as human beings, we are the same in seeing each other as an equal member of this global human community is just the right thing to do. How is it in your country? What is the situation and the environment between the racial dynamics, as you probably well know from the news or any other sources, that in other parts of the world right now, it's been quite escalating, or maybe not escalating, but definitely brought to the surface the major issue of racism. How is it in your country? Because your country is so diverse.
What I see is that the most part of South Africans just want to. They don't see the color. They don't see because we see our humanity, and we feel proud of being this country. And then there is also absolutely people sitting on they are more maybe very far right. Far right in is always been a thing. It is, and then we also got like other parties of people that don't like the white people. So yes, there is that racial tension, but the average South African will come together when there's a crisis, and you'll see Hindu, Zulu, Afrikaans, English, and you will see people after a disaster has struck, like earlier in the, I think it was last year, when the looting was going on, and there was a big raid, and shopping malls were destroyed, and the people just came together in all the entire, and they said, this is who we are as South Africans. We stand together, we build together, so there's that part, and then there's only that little piece of the apple that wants to just eat away at it. You know, you can't change people's, sometimes their radical views.
No, it's so refreshing and beautiful to hear, Sharika, honestly, that kind of support and equality exists in the world, and especially in country as diverse as yours. Whereas the country I live in, you would think that a country of immigrants and everybody would be supportive of each other, but the division is too hard, too defined. I guess my very last question for you would be, since World Cultures on View is about cultures and a lot travel as well, for people who would like to explore South Africa and learn more about your culture and your country, where would you recommend they go, and what would they see? Maybe specific regions or specific areas or communities?
Uh, Swaziland, Swaziland is really a nice, very safe environment to visit, where you can also visit a cultural village that will take you through from A to Z. And if you also come at the right time of year, around about August, you are about to see the Reed dance. And these are young women dancing, and you get to see the culture in full display. That's quite beautiful. In Hazy View, it depends. Are you coming? Well, we're talking about world cultures, so let's stick to the cultures. In Hazy View, there is a Zulu village there, and you can stay there for a night or two, or stay there and then visit them during the day, and they will take you through their village culture. So the whole thing will be there. You get to speak to the elders, you get to go through their daily life, get to see the things they do and how they still live tradition. There is in KwaZulu-Natal, there are such villages as well. And then, of course, in South Africa, I think a great attraction is also if you could see the Bushman, Khoi and San people, the trackers of South Africa. It's uh, it's they called the Khoi and San people, but they are called Bushmen. So they're also wonderful to experiment. They are more to the Northern Cape, going down right down to Namibia. So that's something nice also to see. And I think there's a lot to see in Johannesburg. More about the culture of the integration when the apartheid was ending, and that sort of Jeppes vibe with music and that going on. I would just say, if visiting, make sure that you're doing your homework. Make sure that if you want to do it alone, there are many places to do it alone, but don't just go into it blind. Do your homework very well. See where's your spots where it may not be safe. Find out by people. To look at the things going on in the country. So
Sure.
just seeing that and seeing the wildlife is also worth it. Absolutely.
Definitely. I saw your other gallery with wildlife, and yes, it's Africa. So of course it's really stunning and
Yeah.
so diverse and unique. Sharika, thank you so very much for this time and everything you talked about.
It's been such a pleasure. And I always say that, my perspective might be different from somebody else's perspective. Somebody else might be looking from the inside at South Africa and might see, oh, they're just seeing it as negative and looking at all the negative things. But I simply can't. Why am I to? I know what's going on also, but I do want to find the good in our people, because I find that to be a motivation to be to generate more good. You can't always just look at the things that's going wrong.
Absolutely. And that's what you're doing with your photography. And that is exactly what you're doing with your work. And you're focusing on individual people and personalities and personas, and you photograph them and you portray them in such a beautiful way. So thank you for your work and thank you for this time. It's really
Thank
great.
you. Thank you for a wonderful opportunity, and I hope you've got some good programming there too. And
Well,
thank you very much.
my pleasure.